Welcome to the 700 Club, and thanks for joining us. An 11-hour standoff described as horrifying. That's what a rabbi and 3 other hostages endured when a Jewish synagogue in Texas was attacked on Saturday.
The gunman demanded the release of a convicted terrorist held in a nearby prison. The ordeal ended with all the hostages safe and the suspect dead. As Dale Hurd explains, the investigation is now international in scope.
Counter-terrorism police in Manchester, England, have detained the teenage sons of Malik Faisal Akram in connection with the hostage standoff at a synagogue in Colleyville, Texas over the weekend. British police are only saying the teenagers are in custody for questioning. Akram reportedly was in touch with his sons during the standoff. Malik Faisal Akram, a British national who arrived in the U.S. 5 weeks ago, entered the Shabbat service at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville Saturday, where police say Akram took a rabbi and 3 others hostage for almost 11 hours before officers stormed the building. Akram could be heard talking on a live stream of this service.
He was talking about Israel, Palestine, Islam, and that he had a gun. He implied he had a bomb in his backpack. It was horrifying.
Cameras suddenly captured a frantic dash to freedom by the hostages. Akram, shot in the head by the hostage rescue team, was found dead in the synagogue. Authorities say he was demanding the release of convicted terrorist Afia Siddiqui. Siddiqui, a Pakistani neuroscientist, was convicted of plotting to kill U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. She's serving an 86-year sentence at a prison in Fort Worth, not far from the synagogue. The Simon Wiesenthal Center released a statement saying it's no accident a synagogue was chosen for this attack. Texas Congressman Michael McCall said it shows anti-Semitism is alive and well.
We need to get to the bottom of this. We haven't seen one of these radicalized attacks in a few years now, and it's disturbing to see it raise its ugly head again.
Joe Biden said the White House is focused on the threat to Jews and Christians from Islamic terrorists.
I wanted to make sure we got the word out to synagogues and places of worship that we're not going to tolerate this, that we have this capacity to deal with assaults on particularly the anti-Semitism that has grown up.
The rabbi credited recent training at the synagogue for saving the hostages' lives, saying without the instruction we received, we would not have been prepared to act and flee. Across the country, law enforcement are reportedly stepping up security at Jewish synagogues and schools. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, we've been stepping up security at Jewish synagogues, Jewish schools for some time now. When you look at the FBI statistics, they're quite revealing. They are required to track hate crimes, and in particular, religious hate crimes. And the crimes against Jewish people right here in the United States is overwhelming. They're the most persecuted group in our country when you look at persecution for religious reasons. There's a reason that congregation went through the training of what would happen if something happened within their synagogue and what should be the steps. It's a sad state of affairs in America to say that every synagogue is going through that same training. They're all doing it because they have to. And whether it's what happened in California with that horrible attack with a knife, or what happened with the synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, these are growing threats, and we need to recognize that there's a spiritual force behind it. The rabbis are quite clear. Every single generation, there arises a spirit that tries to wipe out the Jews. That's what we're confronting, and we need to confront it openly and quite strongly that no, in the United States, this should never happen. In other news, a dangerous winter storm brought high winds and ice to parts of the southeast Sunday, and now it's moving north. Mark Martin has more from our CBN newsroom. Mark?
Gordon, the storm left a trail of damage as it moved through the southeast, knocking out power, felling trees, and coating roads with ice, leaving tens of thousands without power in Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. Highway patrols report hundreds of accidents, with 2 killed in North Carolina when their cars slid off an icy roadway. The system also caused a tornado in Fort Myers, Florida, destroying more than 24 mobile homes. Parts of the Northeast are already seeing steady snow, which will continue into the region throughout the day. In Virginia, thousands endured the cold on Saturday to see their new governor sworn in. Republican Glenn Youngkin took the oath at the state capitol in Richmond. CBN's Tara Mergener was on hand for the ceremonies, and she reports that Governor Youngkin is off to a brisk start.
A lot of people in this crowd say they voted for Glenn Youngkin because he's promising change for Virginia, a process the governor says will start on day one.
True to his word, Youngkin fired off nearly a dozen executive orders soon after taking office on Saturday, including a ban on critical race theory in public education, ending mask mandates in schools, ending a vaccine mandate for state workers, terminating the Virginia Parole Board, and establishing a commission to combat anti-Semitism.
And we celebrate the sound of freedom.
The day began with a jubilant crowd cheering Virginia's 74th governor.
My fellow Virginians, the spirit of Virginia is alive and well.
Youngkin promised to restore trust in government and power to the people.
And to be clear, this spirit of Virginia is not a spirit that is rested in government telling us what is best for us, but rather reflecting the will of the people, defending and protecting.
Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears and Attorney General Jason Miyares made history. Sears as the first woman of color and Miyares the first Latino to hold statewide office. The 55-year-old former executive is a first-time politician.
I am honored to accept your nomination for governor of the great Commonwealth of Virginia,
who surprised many by turning Virginia from blue to red with the help of independent voters and even some Democrats. Now he's calling on Virginians in both parties to put differences aside.
We must bind the wounds of division, restore trust, find common cause for the common good, and strengthen the spirit of Virginia.
Youngkin, a devout Christian who won the evangelical vote by nearly 90%.
It's a red wave here. It's the blood. It is the blood. God is doing a transformation, starting with the state of Virginia.
Mobilized voters on issues like education, insisting students be in school 5 days a week and that the classroom is no place for politics. Supporters who drove through the night to see him sworn in.
We drove a little over 6 hours to get here, and just to be able to see the change, we're just so excited.
Say they have high hopes for the future.
Virginia collected the largest ever share of revenue this past month, which is great. I'd like to see some of that back in my pocket if I'm not too selfish.
I'm hoping that Glenn Youngkin can correct some of the wrongs that have happened, that we can get better support for police, better support for education, and put Virginia on a path to success.
And Youngkin will be in charge of a divided government with Republicans controlling the House of Delegates, Democrats, the Senate, but Gordon Terry, he insists he can get past this gridlock. We shall see.
Well, Tara, tell us about the executive orders that he signed on Saturday. What can we expect from those?
Well, a big one here are the executive orders on education. There were a couple of them, and both of these are an effort to make good on his day one promise to restore excellence in education. And what he means by that is there's been a big outcry about CRT in schools. He is essentially ending that and other divisive curriculum. So that, in theory, will be a thing of the past. He also is going to push back against the outcry. People are also pushing back on that order here in Northern Virginia, saying that it breaks the law, that he's violating state law by essentially doing that. The other is empowering parents and children. We know that was a huge thing on the campaign trail. Many parents outraged at Terry McAuliffe saying parents don't have a say in what their kids learning in school. And even before that, feeling like they were being shut out of their kids' education. So this executive order says it's going to allow parents to be involved in their kids' upbringing. And that is going to start with mask mandates. But again, people are already saying he's breaking the law with that, and certainly lawsuits and the pushback and the blowback is already starting on that. But Youngkin says he's going to stand up to it.
All right, well, the campaigning doesn't ever seem to end. Let's also talk about the new Attorney General. He announced an investigation into the Loudoun County School Board. Tell us about that.
Well, that's right. You remember the outcry leading up to that, even before the allegations of a sexual assault and now conviction of a 14-year-old boy who raped a girl in a school bathroom. And in turn, the allegation is that the school board covered it up by sending him quietly to another school where that same boy did the same offense again. So there were two victims in this case. So Miara says parents deserve transparency here. They need to know what happened. And more importantly, he wants the school board and the school districts to learn from their mistakes. He says he's not necessarily targeting one person or one member of the school board or whatever, but he wants people to learn from this. And he says parents, again, deserve to know what happened and know that their kids are safe when they go to school. Another really interesting executive order here is that the parole board, he's very upset with the Virginia parole board. Glenn Youngkin has terminated this parole board. There's a new one already in place. And basically the allegation here is that the parole board broke the law when they let out murderers, rapists, and cop killers early on their sentences without notifying the victims. Certainly, we're going to hear a lot more on both of these in the days to come, but very high-profile issues here, Gordon.
Very high-profile issues, but keep in mind, parole's been abolished in Virginia since 1995. So all of those cases were people who were convicted over a quarter century ago. So it's interesting how many headlines are being made by it, but the practical effect, the parole board's kind of a minor part right now. I think there's less than 500 inmates that are subject to it. So it's interesting. We'll see if that gets reformed, if parole is going to come back. My personal opinion is a lot of juries didn't know. A lot of people in Virginia, living in Virginia, don't know that there's no such thing as parole anymore. So we'll see. All right, Tara, thanks for the report and thanks for the insight.